Have you ever wondered why some women carry their pain like a crown? Why, even in their silence, something regal lingers, an authority born not of conquest but of endurance? She thought she was broken, shattered into the 1,000 quiet pieces of shame. But shame was never her truth. It was the cloak she was forced to wear, woven by generations of women who mistook compliance for love and silence for weakness. Beneath that cloak, something ancient was stirring, a queen remembering her throne. Shame is the most invisible chain. It does not shout, it whispers. It teaches a woman to doubt her own reflection, to apologize for her existence before anyone accuses her. It is a slow erosion of self, disguised as humility, disguised as care. From a young age, she learned to measure her worth by how little space she took, how softly she spoke, how easily she forgave. And the world called her kind. But beneath that kindness, something began to ache. It was the ache of truth wanting to breathe. The masculine wound seeks control, fearing insignificance. The feminine wound seeks connection, fearing abandonment. Together, they create a tragic dance. He grasps tighter the moment she pulls away, and she pleads for closeness the moment he withdraws. Both are ruled by fear masquerading as love. But when she begins to awaken, when she finally sees how her self-betrayal was once her strategy for survival, something shifts. She no longer chases validation. She begins to see shame for what it truly is, an inheritance, not a destiny. In Jungian language, she meets her shadow. The shadow of the pleasing girl, the obedient daughter, the self-erasing lover. These fragments whisper from the corners of her psyche, demanding to be seen. And as she looks, really looks, she finds that shame dissolves in the light of awareness. What was once a curse becomes a crown. Because the Queen Archetype is not born from power over others, but from sovereignty over self. Her throne is not external. It is the seat of her own consciousness. Imagine her now. She stands before a mirror. The same mirror that once reflected her doubts now reflects her dignity. Her back straightens. Her gaze softens but no longer apologizes. There is no audience, no applause, no witness, only her and the quiet hum of her returning power. The moment is simple, but it is sacred. For the first time, she does not try to fix herself. She simply allows herself to exist without defense. And in that allowance, shame has nowhere left to hide. He may notice. The one who once fed on her insecurity, who mistook her kindness for weakness. He sees her stillness and cannot find his usual foothold. Her eyes no longer seek permission. Her silence no longer invites intrusion. He feels insignificant in her presence because her light no longer bends to accommodate his shadow. What he calls distance is, in truth, her sovereignty. What he calls pride is her healing. She does not hate him. She simply no longer needs him to define her. You too have worn this cloak of shame. You too have apologized for your depth, your longing, your fire. You have mistaken silence for submission when, in fact, silence is your initiation. Can you feel that subtle line between shrinking and surrender, between fear and reverence? Sit with it. Let it tremble through your ribs. It is the moment before awakening, the pause before the crown descends. The Queen Archetype does not rise through defiance alone. She rises through integration. Her power is the alchemy of opposites, strength and tenderness, authority and grace, detachment and devotion. She no longer splits herself to be loved. She brings all parts of her, both the wounded child and the sovereign woman, into the circle of acceptance. And this is how shame dissolves, not by denial but by inclusion. In her kingdom, no feeling is exiled. Anger becomes a guardian, sadness a counselor, desire a priestess of aliveness. The queen knows each of them by name, and because she honors them, they no longer rule her in secret. This is individuation, the holy marriage of shadow and light. It is the return to wholeness that no external love can grant. So when she sits in silence now, it is not the silence of absence. It is the silence of presence. It is the stillness that commands without words, that heals without effort. Her silence is not passive, it is powerful. It unsettles those who seek control because it cannot be manipulated. It is the sound of a woman who has forgiven herself. Tonight, sit with your own silence. Feel how much strength it holds. Do not fill it. Do not run from it. Let it reveal what has been buried under the noise of pleasing. Beneath the rubble of shame lies something unbroken. It has always been there, waiting. The woman who once thought she was broken was never broken at all. She was only unclaimed. And now she begins to claim herself, not as a role, not as a reaction, but as a realm. There comes a moment when a woman stops trying to prove her goo. Dnes, it is not rebellion, it is revelation. The queen does not need to announce her worth, her existence is proof enough. And yet this realization is not born in comfort. It is born in the ache of disillusionment. For to rise into sovereignty, she must first witness the ruins of the identity built from others' expectations. That collapse is sacred. It is the death of the false self. The false self bows before approval. It smiles when it wants to scream. It gives until empty and calls that love. It performs harmony even as it bleeds inside. Shame is the architect of this mask, whispering that authenticity is too much, too dangerous, too selfish. But the soul cannot live long behind such disguises. It will begin to crack the surface, through restlessness, through exhaustion, through quiet despair. What looks like breaking down is often the beginning of breaking free. In the masculine, the wound takes another shape. His fear is not of abandonment but of insignificance. He chases achievement, attention, domination, anything to prove that he exists. But his conquest is hollow because it is built upon a silent terror, that without validation he disappears. The feminine wound mirrors this. She gives herself away to feel seen. He consumes to feel real. Two halves of the same unconscious hunger. Neither one evil, both lost in the same forgetting, the forgetting of inherent worth. When she begins to see this dynamic, she no longer blames. She understands. She recognizes the frightened boy beneath the man's arrogance, just as she sees the frightened girl behind her own people-pleasing. Compassion blooms not as surrender but as wisdom, for the queen's gaze is not naive. It penetrates illusion and sees essence. She no longer confuses empathy with self-erasure. One evening she encounters him again, the one who once held power over her emotions. His words are still wrapped in charm, his eyes still testing boundaries, but she no longer flinches. She listens, but the energy of her attention has changed. Once it flowed outward, desperate to be received. Now it flows inward, calm, contained, luminous. He feels it, though he cannot name it. Her silence unnerves him because it no longer asks for anything. It reflects him back to himself. This is the queen's magic, mirroring without attachment. She becomes the mirror that reveals truth. And truth is the one thing the ego cannot seduce. The more she embodies this stillness, the more projections fall away. Those who once saw her as savior now see her boundaries as betrayal. Those who once admired her softness now accuse her of coldness. Yet she does not defend herself, for she understands. When you stop serving others' illusions, they will call you cruel before they call you free. To the listener, yes, how many times have you softened your voice to be loved? How many times have you apologized for feeling deeply, for wanting more than crumbs of affection? How many times have you mistaken their comfort for your belonging? Sit with that ache. It is not weakness. It is your initiation. Every tear you held back was a prayer for your own return. The Queen archetype does not emerge fully formed. She is carved by the fires of disillusionment. She must walk through the shadow of the witch, the one condemned for knowing too much, for refusing to bow. She must meet the siren within, the one who lures through authenticity, not manipulation. Each archetype she integrates becomes another jewel in her crown. And shame, the heaviest of them all, becomes gold when melted by awareness. Jung wrote that the shadow, when integrated, becomes the seat of real power. What we deny rules us. What we face frees us. The woman who has faced her own shame cannot be humiliated by others. The world's judgment becomes background noise, insignificant compared to the music of her own clarity. She no longer seeks permission to exist. Her very breath becomes an act of sovereignty. And so her relationships transform. Where once she chased, she now chooses. Where once she begged for love, she now invites it through resonance, not desperation. Men who approach her feel something unsettling, a calm that cannot be conquered, a grace that cannot be bought. They sense her depth and either rise to meet it or retreat in fear. Both outcomes serve her equally. You might feel this change within yourself already, the subtle shift from seeking to seeing. It may feel lonely at first. The silence after detachment can echo like an empty hall, but stay in that silence. That echo is your own voice returning to you after years of exile. It is the sound of shame leaving your body. The Queen's realm begins not in the outer world but within the psyche. Her throne is the seat of self-respect. Her crown is the light of consciousness resting upon an integrated mind. Her power is quiet, but it commands universes. For when a woman heals her shame, she heals generations of silenced mothers before her. The journey continues deeper now. Beyond dignity into devotion, beyond self-knowledge into embodiment. Because knowing she is whole is not enough. She must live it. She must walk the world as her own permission slip, unashamed of her hunger, her softness, her sovereignty. That is the next passage, and it begins in the heart of her stillness. There is a particular stillness that descends when a woman stops running from herself. It is not peace in the way the world defines it. It is a fierce calm, the kind that follows storms. Her silence now carries weight, not emptiness. It is the sound of reclamation. She no longer hides behind her own apologies. Her voice, even when unspoken, fills the room. That is the power of the integrated feminine, presence that does not plead, stillness that does not submit. For years, she mistook shame for humility. She believed self-erasure was compassion. She wore invisibility like armor, convincing herself that not being a burden was love. But every suppressed truth became a ghost haunting her nervous system. The more she tried to be good, the further she drifted from what was real. Shame had convinced her that worthiness was conditional, that only when she pleased others could she deserve peace. The illusion was complete. She called her captivity virtue. Yet the psyche has its own rebellion. When the soul tires of imprisonment, it begins to speak through symptoms: anxiety, exhaustion, emptiness. Each one is a message, not a malfunction. The call of individuation begins quietly in whispers that say, "Something inside me must live." That whisper grows until pretending becomes unbearable. This is how awakening begins, not in triumph, but in the quiet agony of honesty. In the masculine, that same awakening comes through loss. His fear of insignificance forces him into overachievement. But when success no longer fills the void, he confronts his shadow, the terror of meaninglessness. Only then can he begin to love without possession. Only then can he meet the feminine as an equal, not a trophy or a threat. The feminine's healing invites the masculine's transformation, and vice versa. They are mirrors in the great work of evolution. Picture her now walking through a city that once made her feel small. The streets have not changed, but she has. Her pace is deliberate. Her gaze no longer seeks approval. A man calls out to her, casual testing. She does not react, not from pride, but from presence. His words dissolve before they reach her, as if her energy itself declared boundaries. There is no fight in her, no defense, only sovereignty. And in that invisible realm of energy, the world rearranges itself around her newfound stillness. The Queen Archetype teaches that boundaries are sacred geometry. They are not walls but architecture, defining where divinity lives within and where the world begins. Shame once blurred those lines, convincing her that saying no was cruel. But now she understands that every no is a yes to her own integrity. Her boundaries are not rejection, they are reverence. Through them, she honors the life force that animates her. To you listening, have you mistaken compliance for peace? Have you silenced your truth to protect someone else's comfort? Notice how your body tightens when you betray your intuition. Shame lives in the body first, not the mind. It crouches in the shoulders, the gut, the throat. The healing begins when you listen to where it hides. Place a hand over that place now. Breathe. Let the air reach what has been waiting. This is how sovereignty enters, one breath of honesty at a time. The Queen's silence is not a void. It is the womb of creation. Out of it, new language is born, language free of apology. When she speaks again, her words carry a different vibration. They do not seek to convince, they declare. Her tone softens, not from weakness, but from knowing she no longer needs to prove her strength. This balance, this paradox of softness and power, is what the world fears most. because it cannot be controlled. Her relationships transform again. Those who approach her with open hearts feel at ease in her presence. Those who seek to exploit her energy feel exposed. She no longer mirrors their wounds, she reflects their potential. This reflection is not always comfortable, but it is profoundly healing. To stand before a woman who has integrated her shame is to meet truth embodied, and truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. In Jungian terms, this is the moment the shadow begins to serve the self. What was once hidden becomes the foundation of wisdom. The same sensitivity that once made her vulnerable now grants her intuition. The same vulnerability that once invited pain now invites depth. Every fragment she once despised becomes a facet of her wholeness. This is alchemy, the transmutation of shame into sovereignty, of pain into power. At night, when the world quiets, she sits alone, not lonely but luminous. There is a subtle hum inside her, the vibration of alignment. She no longer needs to ill the silence because she has become the silence. The throne she once imagined outside herself she now feels within her chest. She wears no crown, yet everything around her bends toward her peace. And perhaps in that stillness she thinks of all the times she believed she was broken. She realizes now that what she called brokenness was her soul refusing to be small. The cracks were never flaws, they were openings. Through them, the light entered. Through them, the queen was born. The next passage is deeper still, the descent into her heart's sacred fire, where love is redefined and the final illusion of shame dissolves completely. There, she will remember what it means to love without losing herself. Love was once her battlefield. Every glance, every silence, every withdrawal a signal she tried to decode. She mistook attachment for devotion and sacrifice for worth. Like countless women before her, she gave her softness to those who fed on it, confusing hunger for affection. And yet, beneath every heartbreak was a quiet teacher, shame, whispering its oldest lie, that she was too much or never enough. It was a lie that shaped her relationships, her choices, even her dreams. But shame can only survive in secrecy, and her awakening has brought it into light. Now she begins to understand that love is not the balm for shame, it is the mirror that reveals it. Each person she called lover or friend was a reflection of her own unconscious belief about deservingness. The one who withdrew reflected her fear of abandonment. The one who judged her mirrored her self-criticism. The one who stayed without depth reflected her own avoidance of truth. This is the alchemy of shadow work, realizing that what hurts is not punishment but information. The psyche speaks in mirrors, not in words. The masculine wound plays its own part here. His fear of insignificance compels him to dominate, to control what he does not understand. When faced with her depth, he feels small. When faced with her silence, he feels unseen. So he projects his discomfort onto her, calling her cold, distant, dramatic. But she sees now that his reactions are his own shadows, not her reflection. The queen does not take on the distortions of others. Her clarity has become her shield. And yet her compassion remains. She no longer hates the masculine for its blindness. She knows that he too is enslaved by a system that taught him to equate love with control. His rage, his pride, his need to win, each one a veil over his terror of not being enough. She holds this understanding without rescuing him from it. True compassion does not coddle, it witnesses. She lets him face his own reflection in her stillness. Whether he rises or retreats is his initiation, not hers. One day he returns not to dominate but to understand. His eyes softer now, his words less rehearsed. He speaks of missing her light, her calm, her quiet strength. She listens, but the meaning is different now. She hears the sincerity beneath the confession, yet no longer needs to absorb his pain as her purpose. Her empathy has matured into discernment. She can love without losing herself, care without carrying. This is the sacred art of detachment, love without ownership. To the listener, you standing at the threshold of your own reclamation, can you sense how your energy changes when you stop chasing? The heart expands, but it no longer spills. Love ceases to be a transaction. It becomes a state of being. You begin to understand what Jung meant when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." What you called heartbreak was often your soul breaking the spell of repetition. Shame taught you to beg for love. Healing teaches you to become it. The more you embody your wholeness, the less you need others to validate it. This is not isolation, it is liberation. From this place, love becomes something divine, not desperate. You stop trying to convince anyone of your worth. Those who can meet your depth will recognize it. Those who cannot will simply fade. Neither outcome diminishes you. The Queen knows this truth well. Love given from fullness is a gift. Love given from emptiness is a plea. She no longer offers from depletion. She lets her presence do the work. Her very being radiates the message, I am already whole. The world responds in kind. Opportunities, friendships, and partners who match that frequency begin to appear. They are drawn not by her need but by her essence. Still, remnants of the old pattern will occasionally surface. The mind, conditioned by years of shame, will whisper, you will lose them if you don't yield. In those moments, she breathes and returns to her throne, the inner seat of awareness. She reminds herself that no true connection requires self-abandonment. The body may tremble, but the soul stands firm. Every time she honors that tremble without giving in, she strengthens her sovereignty. At night, as she lies beneath the hush of her own heartbeat, she feels the paradox of love and solitude merge. The ache of missing becomes an opening, not a wound. The longing transforms into reverence for connection itself. She realizes love was never about merging into another. It was about remembering the unity that already existed within. From this place, she can finally love freely, for she is no longer loving to fill a void. And as the moon spills silver across her room, she whispers not to another, but to herself, I was never broken. I was only learning how to hold myself. The echo of that truth moves through her body like light through glass. It touches every memory where shame once lived and turns it to gold. The transformation is nearly complete. What remains now is not healing, but embodiment, the final act of walking the earth as her own permission, her own peace, her own power. The final passage is not about remembering who she is, but living it. Morning arrives differently now. The light does not strike her as it once did. It does not expose her, it blesses her. The same mirror that once judged her now bows before her presence. The silence she once feared now greets her like an old friend. This is not arrogance. It is arrival. She no longer performs being whole. She is. And that simple truth radiates through everything she touches. The woman who once thought she was broken now walks through the world as her own sanctuary. Her beauty no longer comes from perfection but from presence. Her calm unsettles the shallow and comforts the deep. Her very existence becomes an act of defiance in a culture that profits from insecurity. Every step she takes reclaims a piece of the collective feminine lost to centuries of silence. Her healing is not personal, it is ancestral. She carries within her the voice of every woman who was told to be small. The Queen Archetype has fully awakened. She no longer seeks power through dominance or seduction. Her power is serenity. Her authority comes from alignment. There is no need to prove, persuade, or punish. She has transcended the binary of victim and victor. Her throne is the heart, steady and unshaken. To those still caught in illusion, she may appear distant, but her distance is sacred space. It is the boundary where her essence breathes. The masculine feels this shift before he understands it. He senses the end of the old game, the tug-of-war between control and compliance. Her stillness confronts him with his own emptiness, but also offers him the mirror of his potential. If he is ready, he will rise, not to overpower her, but to meet her. The awakened feminine calls forth the awakened masculine. Her sovereignty becomes the invitation for balance. And what of shame now? It no longer has a voice. It dissolved in the radiance of self-acceptance. Every fragment she once hid has become part of her crown. Her fear of being too much has become the fire of her authenticity. Her tendency to please has become the grace of her empathy. Her pain has become her wisdom. Nothing was wasted. Every wound was a door. To you listening, can you feel this possibility inside yourself? That every moment of self-doubt was never a failure but a forging. That every rejection, every silence, every tear was sculpting you into something unbreakable. The process was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to reveal you. You were never meant to stay small. You were meant to remember the truth. That shame is the shadow cast by your own light. You may feel it now, a subtle strength rising beneath your ribs. It is the beginning of your own sovereignty. Do not rush it. Sit with it. Let it expand. There is no need to prove your worth to anyone, not even to yourself. Worth is not earned. It is inherent. You were born enough. The work now is not to become, but to unbecome everything you were told you had to be in order to deserve love. Imagine her once more, the woman who thought she was broken. She walks into a room. Conversations pause, not because of what she wears or how she moves, but because of what she radiates. Her energy says, I am whole. I'm not here to be chosen, I am here to choose. The air around her thickens with quiet reverence. This is what happens when shame leaves the body. The world begins to respond differently. She does not command it. She simply allows it. In this final stage of her transformation, her silence becomes prayer. Her gaze becomes medicine. Her choices become law in her kingdom of self-respect. She no longer seeks to be understood, for she understands herself. She no longer waits for closure, for she carries completion within. Her story has rewritten itself, not from brokenness to perfection, but from forgetfulness to remembrance. The queen knows that power without peace is just performance. She chooses peace. She knows that love without freedom is just attachment. She chooses freedom. She knows that forgiveness without boundaries is just surrender. She chooses discernment. Every choice she makes now is a declaration of self-trust. And this, more than anything, is what the world calls power. Her silence is her scepter. Her presence is her crown. Her dignity is her kingdom. She no longer needs to prove her reign. The world feels it. Her life, once driven by fear of abandonment, is now guided by devotion to truth. There is no man, no loss, no judgment that can unseat her. For her throne is within, and it cannot be taken. Tonight, when you find yourself alone, remember her story. Remember that what you call silence is often the beginning of sovereignty. Sit in that stillness. Breathe into your own worth. Let the memory of your shame melt like wax under the flame of awareness. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be whole. And when you rise tomorrow, rise slowly. Let your first breath be a crown. Let your heartbeat remind you of your throne. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.